Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV, and it is Thursday, January 8th, 2026. I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. I'll jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. I'm so glad to be back with you here on You Are Free TV. We're going to jump into the news. It is epic, okay? It's epic what is going on in our country due to Trump's administration, his team, what is happening, and such great, incredible news happening here. So, okay, I start by saying thank you every time. Thank you so much to everybody who supports the channel. You make it happen. And I will plug at the end of the video for my great sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV. But there's just so much news to get into, so we're going to jump in now. So, of course, we have the very sad situation of the death of Renee Good yesterday in Minnesota. We're going to talk about that. But first, I wanted to mention, because I was asked to do so by someone who supports the channel, when I did not talk about Lila Morris being the one who beat Roseanne Boylan to death, okay, as we're just 2 days after the 5-year anniversary of January 6th. And I didn't mention her. I'd meant to in my last video, but yes, we want to talk about, just mention Lila Morris, who was rewarded and promoted after the January 6th events with the Capitol Police being very violent. And we had, of course, Lila Morris, the one who beat to death Roseanne Boylan. And it was disgusting. It was awful. And we want justice for it. And as we look and get back to what I mentioned about Michael Leroy Byrd and his Brandywine, Maryland home, being the Byrd's family daycare center there, we can expect that that's going to be 100% investigated, because what we had today was J.D. Vance in his presser coming out and saying that they have 1,500 subpoenas going out to do with fraud, okay, the human services fraud out of HHS and other departments of the federal government. And what's very exciting here is he announced that there will be a new assistant AG that's going to be appointed. And John Thune has said that they will express the confirmation of this appointment. We hope so. We don't know who this person is yet, so it always is kind of like, we hope it's going to be somebody good. But that J.D. Vance announced there is a new assistant AG position on fraud, specifically to do with the human services massive tens and tens and tens of billions of fraud across. He says it's nationwide, and this is a massive team of prosecutors and investigators that will be connected with this, and hearing this from all different fronts. He said Tim Walz will be directly investigated, as well as Keith Ellison on the hook here in Minnesota. And he's called multiple times on Tim Walz, to resign as governor. This is happening as Mike Lindell knocked it out of the park yesterday in his first gubernatorial race debate in Minnesota. He has another one today. These are like 3-hour long, huge debates. He's doing an incredible job. I really want people to go to mikelindellgov.com and support and volunteer. Okay, we really need Mike Lindell to win this governor's race there. So important. So that's one way to take action and get involved. I'm going to have many action points in this video. And also, with this team in place, you can assume that Michael Leroy Byrd's place there in Maryland will also be hugely investigated as well. So we want to celebrate that. It's a massive day. The Trump executive order, or the announcement of getting out of 66 of the USA's agreements and pacts with the UN and other globalist organizations being cut by Trump. This is also huge. We're going to get into that in a minute. But I do have an action point here that we really need your attention to and your action on. And the links for how to do that are going to be below. So go down underneath this video to the description and you'll get the links, everything that you need to do for this. And this has to do with a January 15th deadline, to do with the FCC's WT docket number 25-276. This is about, of course, the massive deployment of cell towers, but now they're not even towers. They're just boxes of 5G placed wherever they want them. This is the federal government trying to take over local government's control of where this cell infrastructure can be located and implemented. We already know that what was announced, a month ago or so, that they plan to have 6G by the time of the 2026 Olympics in LA, and that will be deployed during that. We saw that back with 5G in China before the rollout of the bioweapon V. And so we know what these things do, how much they harm the EMF spectrum, completely harming the human body. Okay, that's one thing. But you need to get in your comments still before January 15th to prevent local governments being stopped from controlling the placement of cell towers and cell apparatus. Okay, this is the 5G boxes. It's not even towers anymore. It's just these black boxes they put anywhere they want them. And it's going to get more intense and more horrible for what it does to our human bodies, not to mention connecting everybody who got the shots, etc., with the nano sensors in them connected to the intra-body nano network of things. Okay, that is still ongoing, still a threat, as we're seeing Trump almost getting us out of so many things here, including the World Health Organization. But we've seen some incredible stuff there with the 66 removals of globalist participation by the United States. We're going to get into that in a moment, but I do need you to go below to those links and put in your comments that you don't want the federal government to take over local government control of the of where this deployment can happen. We have many things like HR 2289 that overrides the local government control. Then there's many bills. There's just a few of them here. HR 1343, 1588, 1665. This has to do again with your health, your safety. This is about privacy as far as total surveillance that this will give by having this deployment happen everywhere, not to mention property values and property rights. So please go to the description below and take action there. It's once you click those links, it tells you exactly what to do, and it's super important. So that is what I'm going to say there. So, okay, going on from there, I want to mention that we have today is the the anniversary of the Palisades fire. It's the Palisades and Eaton fire, and of course, all of the fires besides. And it's the 1 year anniversary today. And so we're looking at people like Spencer Pratt, who was, I guess, a reality TV star, something called The Hill, announcing his running for mayor there in LA, of course, against the Cuban radical crazy person who allowed LA to burn. And I will just say now that we have a real problem here in New York, where it looks like New York, with Mondami putting in this unqualified person as head of the NYFD, that she is a retired EMT, etc., never fought a fire, doesn't know anything about it. Basically, I think that as Mamdani is claiming that he's going to seize property, etc., that we would be looking at massive fires in New York City, and the same kind of plan there. I'm just putting that out there as a, for entertainment purposes only, that that's something we need to really be concerned about. But so Spencer Pratt is putting in his hat into the ring as mayor. He announces at the They Let Us Burn rally that happened yesterday, and on this 1 year anniversary, his pledge as running for mayor is that, to expose the total fraud and what happened in the Palisades fire, to expose it all. This all happening as Gavin Newsom today is doing his last exit speech, as his term of governor is coming to an end, basically calling on, saying that the federal government, the Trump administration, who's denying huge amounts of federal funds to California, of course, based on this fraud and everything going down in California, that is the people's money, that the people of California deserve this federal funds. And why? And why does anybody deserve these federal funds? I don't get them. I don't know. It's so insane, but that's what Newsom is saying on his way out. So very interesting, all that's going on there. And so we're going to jump in here to, I think we'll get to Trump's removing the USA from 66 globalist organizations. This is huge, and it's still not the top. Okay, we have Scott Bessent in Minnesota today. I've linked his entire speech below. We have basically this incredible marker today, which is that at this point that the U.S. trade deficit is only at 30 billion, and that sounds like a lot, okay, but it was massively huger than that, like in the close to a trillion in trade deficit, okay, with other countries. Trump has brought it incredibly down within 12 months with his tariff plan, with everything he's done to try to stop the destruction of the American economy. And Bessent there in Minnesota, announcing that he's going against the IMF's what they call the quota increase. And the IMF is who Trump really needs to go after. And we're going to talk about who he did cancel our agreements with, but the IMF is still there, the International Monetary Fund, and connected to, of course, the central banks of Europe, etc. This all going down while these same players so involved here, like the Danish royals, right, who are threatening Trump about his desire to connect with Greenland and have there be a way that the U.S. is directly benefiting the Greenlanders, that are about 40,000 people, and create an economic prosperity program there, and as well as to allow U.S. defense to be able to operate there, and that it is an agreement that will secure the U.S. use of Greenland to defend the Western Hemisphere and the USA. And this is fantastic. It's awesome. But you have the guy out of Denmark who's in charge of the NATO, what literally the head, the chair of the NATO expansion committee. Okay. Thank Ukraine. And we're going to get into Ukraine. Um, but basically saying, if the U.S. goes, tries to claim Greenland, which Trump isn't saying, he's basically saying we want to partner with Greenland, and we want it to have that the USA has control for sure, in this agreement, that we have absolute war powers and ability to use Greenland for our defense of the United States of America and our hemisphere. But they're threatening, of course. This is what these crazies are saying, is that, and it's the Danish royals, huge. I mean, when we look at Netherlands, the Danes, etc., these are royal families that put Elon Musk to shame and how much money they have. Okay, Elon Musk is $750 billion, close to $1 trillion of supposed wealth. Okay, they have much more than that, and Trump has coming out against so much ahead of what's coming up with the World Economic Forum in a week or so. So much against Larry Fink to do with stopping the residential buying up of homes of Blackstone, BlackRock, etc. It's very exciting and it's excellent. But when we get here with Denmark basically saying the EU is with me, that if you go after Greenland, we're going to seize all the U.S. military bases, okay, in NATO. And it's ridiculous on its face, because how would they seize them? And they don't have the military, they don't have any ways to do that. But basically saying our NATO agreement is over. And it's just kind of hysterical, because the reality with NATO is that it's 85%, of course, paid by the USA, but also it's only been to protect Europe. There's been nothing that they have to offer, you know, to us out of that. And it has always been to soak and suck all the resources out of America for the entire time. So the whole point of NATO has been to create a World War III with Russia, which they have been intent on doing with since 2012 with the Ukraine coup, the installation of the Nazi regime there in Ukraine. And now we're getting, of course, all kinds of stuff happening there. We have France and UK saying they're going to put troops into Ukraine at the wherever the peace lines are drawn. They're going to have hubs of military security for Ukraine. So we're having France that has no military, and UK that barely has a military, saying they're going to be the defense of Ukraine. And it's kind of ridiculous, but it's also kind of interesting. So that's what's going on, and it's fantastic. But let's look at what Trump has done with this incredible announcing us getting out of 66 of these globalist organizations. One of the hugest, okay, that is, I don't think, getting enough attention, but is amazing, is that USA will get out of the UN Migration Pact. Doy, but yes, okay, UN Migration Pact over. Okay, with the U.S. and the UN, and Trump has gutted all of their cash cow programs in here. A lot of them to do with um, the huge is Trump had already taken us out of the Paris Accords, right, to do with climate and all this crap with um, uh, uh, the SDGs and the sustainable growth, all of this crap, and the carbon, whatever. But formally getting out of what is the UN framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC. The UN Framework Convention on Climate Change is the parent of the Paris Accord. So Trump is saying we're officially out of the larger picture there too as well. Things like the UN Population Fund, okay, which is all about abortions and vaccinations. Okay, this is about the depopulation fund of the Gates and the Gavis and etc. And abortion and basically population control in, of course, mostly any area, especially in Europe, but also in Africa, etc., where they want to limit the population for their own gains, and of course vaccinate the crap out of them and pay the big pharma for all of this, and Bill Gates, etc. So really great action there, and it's really amazing. Okay, this is only going to grow, and this is all before Trump goes to the World Economic Forum in a week or so, and basically tells them, again, as I said the last time I was here 8 years ago, that we have sovereign states and sovereign countries, and we're not going to be globalists, and globalism is over, and it literally is. And so what we're seeing here is Trump basically now he has come and made very specific direct threats to Larry Fink and Blackstone and Vanguard, basically saying that they will be banned from buying residential homes, residential properties in the United States of America. And they already own millions of them. Okay, so we're hoping this is going to be backed by a divestment program, that they're going to have to divest these properties, because that is the how we get our all of the homes that are held up being used as rentals. We had Gail Slater out of antitrust, out of the DOJ. She's one of the good ones, who has already broken some of these larger shell companies out of Blackstone and out of BlackRock that own millions of properties, increasing rents through a racketeering RICO scheme that she has broken up, and already preventing them from doing that. So this is really fantastic for the American people to be able to afford homes coming up. And it's very, very exciting. This is a war path that Trump is laying down before he goes to Davos, getting us out of so many of the UN pacts, and also PPPs, right? Private public partnerships out of the World Economic Forum. And so this is fantastic, leading up to Davos coming up very soon. And so what Trump also did in the last couple of days is he put the U.S. contractors, military contractors, which they're going after massive fraud there in the military as well, basically saying that he's stopping all stock buybacks by these companies. You're looking at Lockheed Martin, you're looking at all of the hugest companies who are constantly just paying their executives enormous amounts of money while they slow down production. And Trump is saying, no, no, no. You're not going to be paying massive payouts to your CEOs and your top executives while you slow down production, while we need absolutely, it's done on purpose to slow down the production so the U.S. doesn't have what it needs, okay, to defend our country, but also to basically do the real protection things we want to do, say Taiwan, say, the operations to protect this hemisphere, that Trump is saying that they make huge profits by slow walking this production. And he's putting an end to it. And it's very exciting to watch that happen as well. So this is all, it's massive, okay, because these people they're not national. This is a transnational corporate cartel of bankster elites, okay, that are all interconnected here at the top of these companies, whether it is the military industrial complex or it's the bankster elite. So also with Bessent making his speech today in Minnesota at the Economic Club of Minnesota, he's going hard against the Fed, going hard against the central banks, and basically coming after their models, how they project and control the monetary systems of nations through these bogus models that predict things in advance that are completely untrue. And so he's going after that. There's huge stuff going on here. And remember that Bessent has made it very clear he's in charge of the IRS, and they are going hard after the fraud and after everything else. So uh, it's really quite incredible, quite amazing. And I'll be getting into something later this week to do with Operation Paper Trail. This has to do with the deep state. Okay, it has to do with how they are. It's beyond what Vance is saying about the fraud AG assistant that's coming in. This is about tracking, as DeSantis had said yesterday in his presser, that they're going after the money of the deep state. And that's going to be coming, and we'll get into it. And I wanted to, of course, also mention that we get, in Just the News, we justnews.com, link below. We also have the uncovering of not just the Somalis leaving Minnesota, but also leaving Dallas, Seattle, multiple other cities, New York, where there is this huge traffic of cash through the airports. All right, we've seen this with the St. Paul TSA whistleblower, excuse me, who talked about that she saw at least $1 billion go through the St. Paul airport with the Somalis, just suitcases full of cash and suitcases full of passports. Well, this is now coming down to be in the many billions. Okay, that has just gone out. And what's interesting here is that a lot of these are going through Amsterdam. Excuse me, going through Amsterdam, but also they go through Amsterdam, and it looks like they're heading to Dubai. Okay, the Dubai situation, the UAE, our best friends, right? Everybody's like Qatar, Qatar, Qatar. But this is very interesting that a lot of these flights ended up in Dubai. So we're going to be seeing what comes out of there. And meanwhile, we have in Aleppo in Syria, one of the most ancient Christian cities in the world, massive thousands of people fleeing, Christians, etc., having to flee Aleppo because of the Kurds fighting with the Jawali new government there in Syria. And it's very sad and disturbing. And I'm sure you can find updates on that at vulnerablepeoplesproject.org. But it's very disturbing how this continues to happen. The attacks on Christians and other ancient civilization. So I'll go on from there. I wanted to bring this up today. This has to do with Ukraine, but in a different way. It has to do with Ukrainians in the USA and how we've seen since 2022 with the massive amounts of Ukrainian so-called refugees coming to the United States. I want to remind people from my old reporting that Ukraine has one of the hugest lobbies in the United States government. Okay, we always think APAC, we think this, that, the other thing, but Ukraine has a massive lobby, and those two are interspersed, of course. Mention that. And one thing that I really wanted to bring up, and this comes straight out of the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council, of course, in charge of all the globalist formation and deep state in our country, and Viktor Pinchuk, the Ukrainian oligarch, being the hugest number one funder, and then we've got Soros and Alex Soros secondarily in there of funding the Atlantic Council, funding Fiona Hill and her globalist online magazine, all of it. But basically, with the Atlantic Council, they're just saying how amazing it is that Ukrainians, refugees, okay, that since 2022 and the Russian invasion, right, the Russian incursion into Ukraine, that we have so many incredible amounts of Ukrainians coming to the US, and people have seen it all across the country. And I think it's something in the like 300,000 range, okay, of people. And this is very interesting because what we're seeing here out of the Atlantic Council, what they want to say really specifically to their lobby, is that the refugees happen to have a shit ton of money. Okay, they just have tons of money. And so what piqued my interest here is like, well, we've given them all these hundreds of billions of dollars, but suddenly in 2022 to now, there's this massive Ukrainian refugee business boom in the United States. And I don't know if you've encountered it, but I certainly have. Strangely, multiple states, multiple places I've been, where suddenly you go into a place and it's gorgeous and it's huge and it's like just built so beautifully, and like it's just like these beautiful businesses, and they're just spectacular, and they're owned by Ukrainians and run by Ukrainians, and everybody who works there is Ukrainian. And it's very interesting. The Atlantic Council itself puts out this information. I've linked it below for you to check, But they literally have tons of money since we started sending tons of money to Ukraine. And most of them seem to have businesses both in Ukraine and the United States. And so I want to just talk about this for a moment. Um, because I'm pretty sure it's our money they're using. Where did all this money come from? Unless they're just, nieces and nephews of the oligarchs, right? Pinchuk, Kolomoisky, all of them. We're seeing that basically what's coming out of Atlantic Council, they're saying not only are they seeking safe haven from the invasion, they're also expanding their businesses like agricultural scouting with drones, okay, is one of their specialties. Apparently, a huge industry in Ukraine is agricultural scouting with drones. We know the whole drone industry that came out of Israel into Ukraine and has become a huge thing. Think Alexei Vindman and maybe Scott Kelly, these kind of people. Well, agricultural scouting drones with aerial fertilization of the land, right? Yikes. So huge drone farming industry, now supplying farmers from North Carolina to Ohio to Maine with farm drones, okay, and massive innovation around this industry. And very interesting, they're saying it's making about $60 billion in revenue, and 300, they're saying there's 300,000 US jobs. But the funniest thing is that whenever you go to any of these places, it's basically mostly Ukrainians who are actually getting those jobs as refugees. And basically they're saying there's 45,000 of these migrant businesses in the United States, 55 billion in sales, 24 billion in wages going out, $24 billion in wages. But as I said, if you go into these establishments, it's, and I'm talking about more commercial establishments. I don't know about these drone farming industry or their cloud computing industry that they're hugely also involved in. They're also hugely involved in the and AI and machine learning industry, it turns out, right? Of course, not many humans there. And they're paying supposedly 8 billion in combined taxes to do with federal, state, and local. So very interesting there, because actual Ukrainian US citizens only make up about 2,200 of those businesses, 2,200 versus 45,000 businesses. Okay, so you see what's going on here. So we're hoping that that fraud AG guy or girl or whoever they're going to put in there, the assistant AG on fraud that JD Vance announced today, is going to be taking a little look here at these 45,000 businesses of Ukrainians in the United States. Of only 2,270-ish are actual citizens of the United States. And it also made mention in this Atlantic Council article, amazing, they just put it right up there for you. Only 1/3 of those businesses, okay, so this brings us down to only 33% of the actual 45,000 businesses actually employ staff. Okay, so I think we might be ripe for a little fraud there and maybe a little money laundering, a little for entertainment purposes only, of money that has come out of our taxpayer dollars, supposedly gone over there, come back around doing whatever. And yeah, I think it's really important to mention. And so I wanted to get that to you today. And it's going to be, I think, a bit of a shorty today, because, I kind of polished it up there really quickly. This is what's going on. We know, of course, with the death of Renee Good, and what happened there in Minnesota with the ongoing use of what is um, this use of cars to mow down ice. This is not a random thing, and I guess I'm not done because I want to get into that. I did want to talk about what Natalie Winters has been so good at uncovering for so long, but this has to do with the Ash Institute, or the Ash. Let me get to here for a second. Hold on one moment. I've talked about it multiple times before, but people need to understand when they think of people like Renee Good and people like her that are getting into this organized, uh, activism in their eyes against ICE. What they're looking at, it's a very, very organized situation, and it has to do. Hold on, let me find this. The Ash. Sorry, taking me a minute. Taking me a little minute here, because it is so important. The Ash Center out of Harvard. This has to do, of course, out of the Kennedy School in Harvard, the Ash Center, and it is run by a woman who her specialty is color revolutions in other countries. And what the Ash Center has is this nonviolent action lab. Nonviolent Action Lab. So this No Kings protest and all the things they've been organized. You look at Swalwell, Eric Swalwell. You look at Jayapala out of Washington State. These representatives all super involved here with the training and organizing of what they call the Nonviolent Action Lab. But you go in there and look at what they have, and I've linked them below. What they call nonviolent action is how can we be violent without it being violent? And one of this is what Kristi Noem has said is a domestic terrorism events here with the using of these vehicles, of course, to cause harm, like the man who shot Renee Good, had already been run over by a car, had 30 stitches in his leg, had been dragged for 150 yards by a former assault that happened earlier and previous. And this is what's going on with this Ash Center out of Harvard, is that they're training these groups. So when JD Vance or whoever else is saying, well, we're looking, or Kash Patel, right? The FBI is trying to figure out where the money's coming from, or figure out who's organizing these people. Well, we've been talking about it for months and months and months and months and months. Okay. It's not that hard to figure out, but out of this Ash Center, it is about how to organize color revolutions with training that is with these methods, using cars, of course, as a blockade and as actual weapons of assault. And so it's very important that people understand that this is, this woman got wrapped up in this, or got wrapped up in something that trained her to do this thing. It's very clear that Renee Good, for entertainment purposes only, was meant to be the blockade and the leader of the blockade of ICE there in Minnesota, 4 blocks from where George Floyd got shot, got dead of a fentanyl overdose, etc. Although he happened to work with Eric Chauvin for many, many months at a Latino, nightclub. Nobody ever talks about that anymore. But yeah, they knew each other. But yeah, this situation of this, who's organizing these people to do these events, and how Renee Good lost her life from being sucked into this, and it's very sad, but it is this institutional level. Okay, Harvard also has been training Socialist Democrats of America for like 40 years. Okay, 40 years plus. You think of like what's her name, Aaron Reich, one of the professors there, the people who are so tight in here with the creation of the Democratic Socialist America. Harvard has been huge, and they have, of course, organized and shown across the nation how to use these cars as blockades against ICE. And that we get people like Lori Lightfoot, former mayor of Chicago, being they've dragged her back in, like, you have to come do this for us now for those payoffs we gave you for entertainment purposes only, announcing that she's starting this ICE accountability project in Chicago, a centralized repository for reporting abusive conduct of ICE in Chicago. So yeah, look at the money ASAP. Look at what's going on there, and why she's starting that, and where the money's coming from, who's instructing her. But this situation with the cars, okay, ICE can immediately and the Insurrection Act is a thing, and it could happen. And but you also can have ICE under the control that they already have, absolutely secure the blocks, okay, where they are going in before they allow any cars in there. There are something called spike strips, okay, spike strips that literally flatten the tires of any car that's going to come near them. That's a simple solution, spike strips, right? Um, these are things that can happen that will make it a little bit easier and better for people that are trying to, in ICE, that are trying to execute the orders to remove criminal illegals out of our United States. And so we're praying that simple maneuver of spike strips and locking down blocks, ICE, as a federal agency, has the ability to do that, um, to lock down the block. Okay, so this is not rocket science there. So anyway, I wanted to mention that Rand Paul here is putting up a couple bills, and I'll link them below. I don't have them in front of me, but basically where he is warning the American public that people think, oh, Rand Paul is a rhino, he's this, he's a traitor, he's whatever. No, he is very much a massive money hawk, that he does not want money going towards anything that isn't to benefit directly small government America. And he is warning us all that the appropriations committees in the Senate and the House have already renewed the refugee free money. Okay, the free money that our government is giving these people for housing, for EBT, for all of it, that it's already been renewed in the appropriations bills, and he is massively trying to stop it. He's putting out two bills. I haven't had a chance to look at them yet, but I'm going to look at them, talk about them more coming up. But basically that he's putting out two bills. One is no money or welfare for illegals, period. Okay, no money or welfare for illegals of any kind. He's putting up that bill. And then he's putting up a second bill that is to deport any migrant who defrauds the government. So that will connect with, of course, the new assistant AG we hope is going to be good, being put in place for huge, what I'm understanding is really a huge team of prosecutors, huge team of investigators here. But yeah, that anybody who does get convicted of this will be deported, and also that the no money at all whatsoever of any kind, federally mandated, that no federal monies will go anywhere that is going to be money for illegals in this country. So good on Rand Paul. I know he gets a lot of bad rap, but good job, good job. Okay. And so I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. We do have Mom Donnie out of New York as he's preparing to try to bring his communism full bear. And as I said earlier, for entertainment purposes only, I think burn down New York City. That we've got his organization being tightly linked to the Maduro regime. And so we're going to follow up on that too. That is just a lead that I'm going to throw out there now. But there is, his behind the scenes situation is the protests in New York regarding Maduro's jailing in New York City, is those protests being tightly connected with his own organizations. So we'll get further into that, but I'm going to leave that there for today. I hope that was insightful. And we're praying. We're praying. It's very sad what happened to Renee Good. It's very sad that people are so brainwashed in this country to not understand that they have no idea where they live and how good they have it, and that they don't understand what has happened, okay, in the attempted demolition of this country, and that there is no other place on earth like it. And so we're going to pray. We're going to pray hugely. We're going to pray. We look at the death of Renee Good, very, very awful, very sad. But then we look at, there was just 2 people gunned down and 6 others injured with gunshot wounds, and outside of a Mormon funeral service at a church in Salt Lake City that happened over the night as well. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And what we're doing is we're keeping our golden ruler. We're keeping straight up here with God to please employ us and to make us God's instrument for putting us in as Jesus Christ warriors for the Prince of Peace, that we keep seeing clearly and we keep being instructed from within, okay, through our prayer and our direct connection to God, because that is what is going to turn the tide, turn the tables here in the United States of America, is the more godly you become. And of course, I'm talking about Christians here, that the more the answers and the direction and the movement of the people of America will be ignited further and further towards sanity and realistic ways to move forward. And part of that is not scrolling, right? Not being subjected to 55% of the internet being AI bots that are just feeding you disinformation, etc. But also getting with your 2 chairs, you and God, getting with your prayers and your fellows in your community, and doing good in your community right now, plus taking the actions I talked about in this video today, getting super involved for the winning of the midterms is vital right now. So I will leave it there. If you found something that was useful in this video, inspiring, and you want to support the channel, super appreciated. There's ways to do so below. And I will mention, of course, here, my fantastic and awesome sponsor, c60evo.com/YFTV. Use the code YFTV for 10% off. This is the miracle molecule ESS60 that is made in the best lab, the liquids and the capsules. These are the olive oils that have the most potent amount of the ESS60 in there. And that is, of course, the fullerene of carbon-60 that is made in the purest lab out of Houston, Texas, that is used in all of the studies, the Nobel Prize studies, all of it from this lab, from these people, okay? You can use the code YAFTV for 10% off. You have to use the links below, c60evo.com/YAFTV. This is about cleaning out your mitochondria, cleaning out your neurons, goes through the blood-brain barrier, and for inflammation, but also for the degenerative diseases. The Big C alternative clinics buy it up by the caseload. But for nervous disorders, MS, the testimonials are amazing. Go check out the website. And if you contribute to the channel, you get 15% off with a different code and link sent to you. So thanks for letting me plug about my amazing sponsors. That product is really a game changer, and I hope that MAHA gets on the ESS60 train. Where of course, we had the toppling of the pyramid, right? Turned upside down by RFK Jr. It wasn't just enough to take the vaccine schedule down from 72 to 11. But now we also get like, hey, let's eat some butter, right? Let's eat some good organic butter, and let's eat lots of protein and animal protein and fats, and eat well again, and getting rid of what I think. I mean, there should still be prosecutions for the murder and creation of Alzheimer's and the evil destruction of a couple generations of people and their grandmothers and grandfathers, and losing them to Alzheimer's, et cetera, by this ridiculous heart disease fraud that happened through big med and big pharma. Disgusting. So anyway, yeah, just wanted to mention that on my way out. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, everyone. You are free. I'm going to have a great interview tomorrow. I'll be back on Friday. We'll do a TGIF video, and I can't wait to see you then. But thanks so much for watching and supporting. You are free. I'll see you tomorrow.